the Brickish Association, who are showing the Lego here this weekend. And I'm going to be giving you a talk on the history of Lego figures. We've got some experts in the audience, so I have to make sure I don't make any mistakes. But the rest of you may be surprised how far back they go. To start with, this image is rather fuzzy because it's a photograph from a Lego cardboard road plate that was made at the end of the 1950s, early 1960s, so way back 60 years. It's pretty scary. Now you might not recognise these as Lego, because the top, you've got little motorbikes and trees, and they don't actually have the stud plates on the bottom, so they're just separate elements that you just place where you want them in your display. And the flags at the bottom, I've actually got one here. Prove it is real Lego, you can stick it on Lego bricks. They do have the stud on the bottom. But these are all made in a scale which we call HO, which might not be familiar to many of you. It's the scale that model railways for children are made in that period. In areas like France and Germany, Denmark and America. It wasn't used here. Here we used a scale called OO, which is the typical Hornby scale made for children's railways and many adult railways as well. But the point here is Lego were a tiny little Danish toy company at the time. Hardly anybody had heard of them. And they were trying to get into the toy market, and they thought, how can we make people buy our toys? And they thought, if we make things in the scale of model railways, anyone with a model railway is going to want buildings made of Lego bricks and trees, little flags and little people, and they'll buy our toys. So that was their way of getting into the toy market. And at the top there, these are the first Lego figures that they made. And the little motorbikes, they are tiny. They're about half the height of a minifigure we know today. And they're quite fragile, and they don't actually fit onto the bricks, though they are made by Lego and designed to be used in Lego displays. They also came with little cars as well. They're ever so expensive because they're very rare. So of course you have a box of bricks with a motorbike and a car in it. They're the first things a child's going to take into the garden and play with, and they get lost, so there's very few surviving. But if you want to collect them, you can find them on eBay and other trading sites and be rather shocked by the price. And here's a close-up of the motorbikes. So they're very detailed, and they're clearly going for a very mature market, people that want to put these on model railway displays with a lot of detail. Right, this is an image from the 60s. Again, this is from a bit of Lego packaging. It's from a catalogue of the time. A very distinctive blue railway track that some of you may remember. And this is a much larger scale. We're no longer in HO. This is getting close to sort of Lego train scale of today. In fact, the gauge is absolutely identical. The big train display across the hall, it's using the same gauge. And our battery-powered trains could actually run on that track quite happily. In the foreground, there's two little black figures. They're very, very crude. They're made from the early bricks, which only came in a few colours. Very chunky, sort of mostly the 2x4 bricks, the big ones, and the 2x2 stud bricks. So they're quite crude, but you can see they're clearly supposed to be people. There's a signalman there holding up a flag to control the trains, and what looks like a policeman with a white hat on beside him. And a lot of the early models gave instructions for building these figures. So you have to have very new, fresh bricks for these to work, otherwise they fall apart very quickly, because a model like that's quite fragile. Right, so moving to the end of the 60s now. Yes, it's a bit girly, but it's moving towards great things ahead. They started making doll's house furniture, again trying to sort of move into the toy market. They're thinking, well, girls with dolls' houses, with dolls, they're going to want some furniture to put in the doll's house, why not make it out of Lego? So here's a few of the early sets. And you can tell they were early because the big kitchen's only £2.10p. So, 50 years ago, Lego was slightly cheaper. And so there's no figures at all. So the idea is that you use your own dolls to add a bit of life to these scenes. But they're beautifully made. And you can see almost all the furniture's got a flat surface, which means that Lego produced the tile bricks with no studs on to make it really realistic. And here are the first people. They turned up in the mid-70s, and we call them homemaker. I've got a couple here you can pass around and have a look at. But they're pretty much figures made from Lego bricks. It's just got a few extra pieces. There's a shoulder piece that attaches the arms, and you've got these lovely posable arms that they've got. It's almost like Technic bricks. They're quite advanced. And the little yellow hands, which of course can actually grip the bricks, so they can build their own houses, which is quite exciting. And the head, so you can see where the idea of the minifigure head came from. And they've got very limited colour range in this period, so that they've chosen yellow for the flesh, which is probably the sort of yellow or white, probably the only options they went for yellow, which has stuck throughout the years. And you've got that wonderful inane smile. You sort of wonder what they've been doing to get into that state. But very charming. And the little headpiece. And the headpiece is, if you want to look at the ones that have been passed around, you can actually reverse them. They've got a different style front and back, so you can get different characters very easily. I think there's only 3 different headpieces, but you get quite a range of characters from those. And you sort of build your own clothing from the bricks that you have. So the girl could easily have a stripy skirt if you put some plates in there among the ordinary bricks to make it a bit more interesting. And I grew up with these figures, and I think they're wonderful. And they're quite easy to find, especially just the loose bricks, just the heads and the hair, because they're not very popular among collectors or modelers. They are very, very charming. Right, and appearing just after Homemaker, again, we're still in the mid-70s here. I was about 3. And these are what we call proto-minifigures. They're the same size, they've got the same hair, they've got the same head, but no face at all, which is strange. They've just made Homemaker with faces on, so I don't know why they didn't print the heads. But the bodies are very, very simple. They've got a slight shape to them, but they've got no moving arms, and the legs don't move. They're just a solid brick with a little indentation to show where the feet are. But this is the start of Lego as we know it today in the minifigure scale. And they produced a lot of different sets at this time. They were making trains and cars and ambulances and fire engines and harbours. And they'd all come in a scale for these little figures, and you get the start of modern Lego. And here's 2 early models. These ones were made as a promotion for Weetabix. Ate a ton of Weetabix and collected the tokens, and you could send off for these models. And I think there's a great charm to these. Very simple colour schemes. Again, they haven't produced many colours by now. What I particularly love about the windmill is you've got a little horse and cart there, and they hadn't thought of making a horse for minifigures at this time, so he's made of bricks. And again, quite charming. Right, so there's a bit of evolution in the mid-70s. We also get Duplo. I think this is one of the later figures, because I'm not going to go into Duplo in detail. It's aimed at a completely different age range. But Duplo figures is much larger bricks, and the figures all come in one piece. You can't take them apart, so very, very difficult to swallow, which is the whole point. But again, quite interesting. There are a few adult modelers who work in Duplo, I think mainly for the shock value. Oh my goodness, that's brilliant, you built it out of Duplo bricks, no one would believe it. It's almost rebellion. I can do it, I always use Duplo to build my sculptures. And we have the minifigures. from about 1976. So I was just about the right age to start playing with this stuff at the time, so I was born in the right year. These are from two of the early ranges, Castle, the Soldier, and the Space Range, which were two of the first themes that were made for minifigures. And older people in the audience might remember the big yellow castle, which I really, really wanted and never got round to affording. But because I had a bit of a conflict with Playmobil at the time. I liked both, so I couldn't afford everything. And just go quickly over the heads that they've made over the years, just to give you an idea of how they've changed. There's actually been a few news articles recently, as a few journalists have noted with horror that the lovely little inane smile has disappeared, and now you get minifigures who are shouting and growling and frowning at one another, and wondering if this is a good thing, whether it's leading children astray and making their play a bit more violent. But it does give a lot of realism, and you can see how it changed. You start with a completely blank, inane smile, and you really do wonder what he's been doing. And the first line across the top, they're variations on the standard two eyes and the grin. They may have added an eye patch and some stubble and a moustache and even war paint, but underneath you can see it's the same little grin. And gradually you'll get more and more realistic expressions, some of which can look pretty scary, like the crazy guy with one tooth looks quite intimidating. Down the bottom, some of the fantasy characters like a goblin, a skeleton skull, and even a scary pumpkin. The pink figure, we'll come back to this later. If the head is flesh-coloured, it means it's a licensed character. All the pink figures, Lego's actually paid a company to make the theme. So they're normally based on films, so you get things like Star Wars and Harry Potter. But of course Lego are entitled to build sets without permission, and they have to actually pay to make sets in those themes, which makes them more expensive, also makes them a lot more desirable and exciting, because we want the special characters that we love from the films. So that's why you get the two different colours to the minifigures. Right, so this is a basic figure. Sorry he's a bit battered, he's been thrown around in Lego boxes for 40 years probably. So he turned up in the really basic brick selections. And again, the head's firmly fixed on. He's quite big, so you can't swallow him. So he's quite sweet. Now, I love these. These were made throughout the 80s. They're about the size of a minifigure, but the heads are huge, which gives them sort of child proportions. And they're all based on animals, and these are called Fabuland. So again, I'll pass some around because many of you have seen them before. Here we go. They're designed for younger children. There's no small parts in these sets. And again, these figures, they don't come apart, so they're pretty strong and safe for smaller children. But they came in quite chunky sets, and you get models like little sort of room scenes, and vehicles, and little boats, and even more excitingly, little funfair with roundabouts and merry-go-rounds. And again, these are absolutely fabulous. And it'd be lovely to see these in an adult display with a lot of attention paid to it, and a lot of these figures included. And again, you can find these second-hand quite easily if they appeal to you. There's a scene of Fabuland models. You've got a car made from quite large bricks. You see the doors all one piece and quite big. The front grille's one piece. And the roof's all one piece, so very safe for small children and very easy to build and quite robust for serious playing. Right, completely different, aimed at much older children. These are figures from the Technic sets. So they've not been made for many years, but it was an attempt to put figures in with the big complicated engineering sets, the big tractors and cars with moving gearboxes and working steering. And a long time ago, Lego created these figures to go with them. It's a shame they've not continued. So they are rather fun. It's sort of slightly more serious, but you've still got the wonderful yellow faces, big green Lego associated with. Right, this is Mr. Stone. He was only around for a couple of years, but they decided to try and make the minifigure a bit more realistic. It's actually got a sort of moulded head that looks a bit more like a real human than the standard square head that the minifigure does. But for some reason he wasn't popular and is only around for a very short time. Right, and going up in scale again, these are Belleville. They're around still relatively recently, and I think they're really beautiful. They're actually covered with real clothes, like a doll's house figure. And again, larger scale, they're similar in size to the homemaker figures we saw earlier from the 70s, but much more detailed and aimed at older children. And I think their most successful range was the fairy tale figures. They did a lot with fairies, princesses and princes. And they did an undersea range of mermaids and all sorts of fantasy designs. And clearly aimed at girls rather than boys. So you've got this sort of extra detailed, higher size, so that you can have a lot of furniture and accessories to keep children happy and give a lot of play value. Oops, go too fast. Here's an example of the licensed figures. These are the early ones, but I'll have to check the date again, I've forgotten. The first Star Wars and Harry Potter figures. Star Wars came out in 1999 and Harry Potter 2001. And the first couple of years they had yellow faces. They hadn't decided to change them to pink yet. And so you can date them quite easily. If you find Harry Potter with his lightning flash and he's yellow, he's a really old one. And you've got Anakin and Anakin over there, again with yellow heads. But that was only for a couple of years until they changed them all to pink. Some later figures to show the difference. Now we've got some pink flesh. And, again, you've got Harry Potter, Star Wars, and of course the Toy Story range. Now, Buzz Lightyear there is an interesting example of how they've adapted minifigures occasionally. He's got a completely different head because he looked pretty stupid and unrecognisable with a Lego one. And they've created this amazing hood for him with the helmet and the wings attached to transform an ordinary Lego figure into a flying one looking out to space. This is one of my favourites, the Pirates of the Caribbean. So I just love Jack Sparrow's costume. It's just so over the top, and they've recreated it wonderfully in Lego. So there's an alien figure from the Star Wars sets, and just look at how they've adapted the standard minifigure. You can see underneath he's got the ordinary legs and the ordinary body inside. He's got this amazing head that comes over his front and over his back to create this very squat shape and very alien features, but cleverly using standard parts underneath. These are figures from the recent board games. You might think that board games, you just keep it in the box and use it as a game, but some of us got quite excited about these little characters, because it means you can build in a much smaller scale. They're about half the size of a minifigure. So if you ever find you're short of bricks, try using these guys instead of the minifigures, And you might find you can build what you've got in your mind with the bricks you've already got. The smaller the figure is, the easier it is to build them cars and planes and buildings, because you don't need as much Lego. And even adult modelers, we run out as well. It's a continuous problem. You've never got enough of the thing that you're dreaming of that you can build. Now we go on to the collectible figures. Now these are a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because every 3 months or so there's this wonderful range of 16 characters that have never come out before. They've got new stuff, they've got new hair, they've got new accessories, and you've got lots of excitement, the new things you can build. You have to keep buying the darn things because they're going to keep making more alarmingly frequently. So a double blessing there. But they have added some wonderful new themes to the range of characters that you've got. This elf, for example, is second or third range, I think. He's got elf ears. Now at the time, I mean, now we're used to Tolkien and hobbits everywhere, but he was the first elf we've ever had, so he was great. We couldn't get enough of him. Right, now what do you do when you can't find the minifigure you want, or you can't afford the minifigure that you want, or your mum won't let you buy any more Lego, so you're going to have to adapt what you've got for what you want? Here's one way of getting around it. These have got homemade stickers on them. I'm rather fond of ships, and I wanted some Navy sailors to crew one of my big sailing ships. So these are just designed on a computer very, very badly. You can see how big the pixels are because I didn't really know what I was doing. Printed off on sticker paper, just on an ordinary home computer, cut them out, stick them on. And they do actually look very effective. It's a very simple thing you can do. If you don't have access to coloured printers, you could just draw on sticker paper, just buy some plain stickers, maybe freezer labels from a sort of supermarket, nice and cheap. Do your designs on, cut them out and stick them on. But it's worth doing it as neatly as you can. And so you do get a very good effect. Another example, these chaps are actually on the model railway across the hall, based on Sharp's rifles, one of our film sets. And again, very simple, just a printer to stick their stuff on, and they almost look as if they were made by Lego. Well, they would do if I knew what I was doing. Here's an example of a painted front. This was me attempting to build Flash Gordon on his rocket cycle. And I haven't used a sticker there because I didn't have access to a printer at the time. So I just painted the design on his front. And he looks quite convincing. And last but not least, we end with the most recent evolution of the Lego figures, which are the Friends characters. Now when I first saw pictures of these, I thought they were enormous. Because they're more in proportion than minifigures, so you expect them to be twice as high, but they're not, they're about the same size. And in fact, you can swap the hair over. Best done with females, because if you put that hair on a bloke, it does look very, very strange. But the hair is compatible with one another, and the accessories are as well. The accessories tend to be a bit overscale for minifigures. But again, they can swap between. Not sure if this was a good idea. It's proved to be very, very popular. But personally, I'd have preferred to see more girl-aimed sets in the standard range, so that girls could use the entire Lego range to build their cities from, rather than be limited to sets only aimed at girls, bright shades of pink. So a lot of adult modelers and a lot of girls are very enthusiastic about this new range, and it's clearly going to continue. So I hope that's been interesting, and if you want to look at the figures, please return the ones I've handed around back to the front. So they're mine and I want them. So if you want to look at them more closely or ask any questions, please do. Thank you.